Hi guys, welcome to my channel Lush Gardener. I hope you guys are fine and are safe. So guys, today we are going to be talking about root mealy bugs. Now you might have seen the title itself says it's quite dangerous. Now the reason why it's dangerous is because unlike other mealy bug attack, we are able to see the mealy bugs on the leaves and we are able to treat it. But in this case, it's very difficult because the mealy bugs attack the root system, which is the most important part of the succulent. So if you look at the succulent, it doesn't look very happy. The leaves are dehydrated. Now guys, I'm very confident about my soil. It is loose and porous, but still even after watering, the succulent was not reviving, the leaves were not getting back in shape. So I thought that I'll do a closer inspection. Now when I checked the pot, I could see a lot of ants near the pot. I could see they were going into the soil. So I knew that there is some problem with the roots. So immediately I went ahead and took out my succulent from the soil. Now on a closer inspection of the root system, I could notice that there were some cavities in the stem. I could see that there was some problem in the roots. So guys, remember, as I said, if there is some problem with the roots, the succulent leaves will start getting dehydrated. The reason is because the succulent is not able to absorb water. The reason is there is some problem with the roots. And that's what exactly was happening with this succulent. And as you can see, the amount of mealy bugs, they have completely destroyed the stem. So you can see the amount of damage done by the mealy bugs to the stem as well as to the roots. Now guys, this is an initial stage of attack. That is why you can see the succulent is still quite healthy. The succulent is putting out a lot of aerial roots. The reason is because it cannot use the primary roots that were there. They have already dried up, all thanks to the mealy bugs. But the succulent is still quite healthy. It is trying to put out new roots so that it can grow. But unfortunately, the mealy bugs will keep attacking. So if this succulent is not treated immediately, the succulent will die eventually. So what we'll be doing is, you can see the stem part. Wherever we find that the stem is clean, we will be going ahead and giving it a cut right over here. But before that, let me clean the roots and show you how the succulent looks like without the roots. But overall, you can see the succulent has been struggling. I feel really bad for the succulent because, as I said, it's very difficult to understand this kind of attack, because this kind of attack usually happens beneath the soil. So it's very difficult to identify until the signs start showing up on the succulent leaves. So this is the leaf that has been attacked by mealy bugs. Now guys, you can see this is the same part which, when we tend to use it for leaf propagation, we let it callus. This is the same part that they tend to attack. Now the worst part is that such leaves cannot be propagated because they have destroyed the main part from where the roots tend to come after it get calloused. So unfortunately, these leaves cannot be used for leaf propagation as well, because they have been completely destroyed at the part which tends to connect the stem and the mother leaf. Apart from this, you'll also notice that there are going to be a lot of dry leaves. Now dry leaves is very common, as and when the succulent starts to grow, there are going to be a couple of dry leaves. But over here, you'll start noticing that this process of drying of the leaves is going to happen much faster as compared to the others. And you'll also notice that in between these dry leaves, you'll also find some fresh leaves that are also falling but are half eaten or half damaged. So this is another sign that you need to keep in mind. So this is how our succulent looks. I'm feeling so bad looking at the succulent right now, so I'm going to try my best to revive this succulent as much as I can. So let me quickly clean up the roots and show you how the damage has been, because now these primary roots are of no use. They have been completely dried up or they have completely gone bad. So it's time to just clean up the roots and give you a much clearer picture how the stem looks like. So guys, before that, this is how the pot looks like. I had uprooted the succulent from this, and you can see the amount of ants that are just escaping out of the soil. These were all the ants that were getting these mealy bugs and fixing them to the stem or to the roots, and then that's how the ants were cultivating them. But unfortunately, their cultivation was very expensive for me, because this is one succulent that I like the most. And guys, this always happens. The succulent that you love, the succulent that you adore the most in your garden, is the one that tends to get affected first. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I went ahead and cleared all the primary roots because they were of no use anymore. Now guys, over here you'll notice another thing. You can see that the stem is starting to turn brown. That's because the mealy bugs have made cavities and they have sucked up all the juice from the stem, drying up the stem. And if this thing was not taken care, because this was an initial stage, so the stem is still very fresh, but over the period of time the entire stem will turn brown and all the leaves will fall off. So You can see how beautiful the succulent is, but it was struggling a lot. Good that I noticed it in the early stage so we can treat it. Now with a very heavy heart, I'll be going ahead and cutting off the stem part. Remember guys, the scissor, blade, knife has to be sterilized before cutting it off. So this is the lower part of the stem which was completely affected. Now you can see when I cut it, there is hardly any juice left in that. Usually when we tend to do a stem cutting, you have noticed that the amount of water and the juice that tends to come out, but this feels like a piece of ginger. In fact, I think when you cut a ginger, there is a lot of juice still left in that, but this is completely dry. It doesn't even feel like it is a part of a plant stem because it's completely dried up. The mealy bugs made cavities and have sucked up all the water, all the nutrients of the stem. So the next step, what I'm going to do is I'll just brush it off lightly. And now guys, remember this succulent does not have any farina, so it's much easier to handle, but I will just brush off everything. Now this brush does not have any water. You have to make sure that this part does not come in contact with any water, moisture. It has to be completely dry. So I'm trying to brush off. If I find any white particles on the succulent still, I'll try to brush it off, otherwise it will get affected again. Now I have put in some cinnamon powder on the brush and I'm just lightly trying to dab the cinnamon powder on the cut. I will add a little bit more of cinnamon powder, but I'm just trying to treat whatever is possible on this so that I don't come in contact with the mealy bugs again. So I have very little cinnamon powder. I'm completely out of cinnamon powder, but I'll just make use of whatever cinnamon powder I have. So I usually do not apply so much of cinnamon powder for my other succulents. As I said, I like this succulent a lot. It's one of a kind in my garden. Apart from that, it's not a very common succulent, so even more special to me. So I want to try my best for it. So I left the succulent to air root for a month. You can see the succulent is still dehydrated because it's obvious we didn't water the succulent. So it's time to check for the roots. So guys, as you can see, the roots have been developed by the succulent. I was quite worried whether it will survive or no because the leaves were already quite dehydrated, but it has put out the roots. The roots are very tender. They are pink in color because they have not been in contact with the soil. So they are slightly pink, but it is very healthy. So I'm glad I noticed this well in advance and I was able to save this succulent. So I went ahead and gave a cut to the stem. Now the new roots are present. They are still very tender and fragile. So now it's time to move the succulent into the soil. So now we are going to follow the same process. Once the succulent has been put into the soil, we will not water immediately. We will place the succulent in indirect bright light and probably water after 2 or 3 days because it's slightly dehydrated. Now guys, when you're planting a succulent with new roots, ensure that you do not push it too deep or do not put a lot of pressure while putting the succulent in the soil. Remember, our soil is already very loose. We do not need to push the succulent, otherwise the tender fragile roots will break and it might harm the succulent. So very carefully you need to place the succulent in the new soil. So guys, I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please hit the like button. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep propagating.